As every child in the hill country is told before the embers in the hearth go dark, the valley we call Silverlane is not merely a sweep of metal-coloured grasses and moonlit shallows. It is the threshold where waking breath thins and dream breath begins, where our own steps leave off and the soft barefoot strides of stories carry on. And over that threshold, on the night when all three moons climb the sky together, walks the one we name the Mist Shepherd. No manuscript names the shepherd, and no chronicle plots the year of his first watch. The scholars of the citadel scribble on about probability and metaphor, but the farmers whose cottages lean into the valley wind trace simple glyphs above their doors the way their grandmothers did. They claim the glyphs keep the wandering dreams orderly, so they don't stray into chicken coops or sleeping cradles, and they murmur thanks to the shepherd for herding them beyond sight by dawn. For in their telling, dreams are not vapour drifting from our own skulls, they are beasts, bright-eyed and moon-fed, and they come grazing through the silver grasses exactly when the three moons share the heavens. If you have never seen the triple moonrise, imagine three lanterns of differing hues, one gold, one pearl, one a quiet sapphire. They ascend separately through twilight, but near midnight they hang side by side, braiding their lights into an iridescent mist that pours downhill like water made of hush. That mist is the pasture of the dream beasts. One moon lends them memory, one moon grants them desire, and the last paints them in shapes the waking mind can endure. But because those shapes are fragile, the beasts are forever in danger of shredding on the thorny edges of thought, or falling into mortal lungs and drowning a sleeper in stories too heavy to survive. Thus the need for a guardian. Thus the Mist Shepherd. The tale most often told begins with the bard Alios, who travelled Silverlane searching for chords no lute had yet voiced. Alios had heard that, on the triple-mooned night, if you step into the valley carrying a bowl of unbroken silence, imagine a vessel formed of breath held long past comfort, then the dream beasts will drink from it. Whatever melody they leave behind rings in your bones forever, and you can sell that song for the price of a kingdom. Greed, like dawn, comes in many colours. Alios's was velvet and sweet. He waited 13 years for the dates of the moons to align, mapping eclipses, petitioning astronomers, polishing the inner walls of his silence bowl with the back of his own tongue. The night arrived windless as glass. Alios walked alone into Silverlane, threading through grasses that whispered like silver wire being drawn thin. He felt the first chill of mist rise to his knees, then to his heart. Shapes bobbed ahead and tail lobes of prismed smoke, moths with petal wings, hounds with eyes like keyholes to other lives. They nosed at the bowl he bore and lapped, leaving behind ripples of sound he couldn't yet hear, but which vibrated the seams of his ribcage. Alios thought himself blessed past all mortals. He did not notice the shepherd until the last of the beasts raised its head and froze. The Mist Shepherd appeared not as a man, nor a woman, nor any figure you might name without hesitation. Some nights the shepherd wears a cloak of coiling haze and a hat stitched from horizon thread. Other nights only footprints appear, filling with dew before evaporating. Alios, however, beheld a face like a half-remembered lullaby, familiar enough to trust, uncanny enough to fear. A crook of polished driftwood rested in the shepherd's left hand, and where its hook glimmered, the mist thickened, corralling the dream beasts into a wide ring around them both. Alios bowed, thinking etiquette might spare him punishment for trespass. The shepherd spoke in a voice that seemed constructed of syllables you discover inside your own mouth seconds before speaking them. "The silence you carried is not yours to barter," the shepherd said. "It was meant for the hillside tombs, where the war-dead try to forget their names. Pour it out there. Here, it spoils the pasture." The bard protested that intent was 9/10 of legitimacy, that stories themselves were made of theft repaid as gift, that surely a song coaxed from dreams only wished to be sung. The shepherd listened, patient as frost. Then the crook described a single arc. The bowl in Alios's hands collapsed into steam. From that steam rose a smaller, quicker breed of dream nightmares, barbed and panicked from having been caged in quiet. They shrieked above the valley like sparks blown from greenwood. Alios tried to gather them back, but they bit his shadow loose from his heels and carried it away to feed upon elsewhere. He fled, Silverlane, skin whole, but hollow, and it is said his music thereafter contained perfect intervals. Yet no one could bear to hear more than a measure, lest their hearts echo with the emptiness inside him. Why do I recount Alios's shame? Because the shepherd did not banish music, nor forbid bold hearts from the valley. The myth insists on neither meekness nor dread. It teaches proportion. Dreams wander for their own reasons, and the living may watch so long as they do not yank at those reasons like reins. For a handful of listeners, that lesson landed true. For most, it needed a second telling. So comes the saga of Rallan the oil maker. Raylan fed lamps in every lighthouse on the coast, rendering whales gifted by treaty from the ocean clans. He believed light was the highest good. When he heard of the triple moons, he conceived an instrument greater than any lens or mirror. A torch whose wick burned wandering dreams rather than oil. Its brightness promised to banish the dark ages from all mortal borders. Raylan sealed himself in a workshop of cinnabar brick, studying inks that might tether mist within glass. No apprentice stayed longer than a week. The walls hummed with sleepless diagrams, and on the eve of the 3 moons, Rallan emerged with a lantern the height of a child, its panes veined with molten silver, and its mouth hungering for all the dream beasts it could devour. Into Silverlane he marched. Unlike Alios, he did not wait for the beasts to approach. He opened the lantern's door and swung the instrument in ruthless sweeps. Where the arc intersected a dream, the creature collapsed into a wad of colourless yarn and spun itself into the wick. The flame bloomed white as hammered tin, near blinding. Raylan laughed, a sound like coins poured over a ledger. That light, however, cut through Silverlane's mist the way a gutted fish reveals its bones. The pasture unravelled. Dream beasts scattered from one another, missing the companionship that keeps their shapes coherent. Some, half-fated, wandered uphill where mortal settlements doze. That is why the bakers of the northern hamlets still report ovens occasionally birthing loaves that sing, or loaf-shaped sorrows that crumble unshewed. The mist shepherd appeared at last, not from the obscuring vapours, but walking in plain view, along the last surviving band of mist, as though it were a bridge. This time the shepherd's crook glowed within, as if stoked by an ember none could see. Raylan aimed the lantern at the approaching figure. The wick drooled for new fodder. "Your lantern already burns the dream of unending daylight," said the shepherd, advancing. "Feed it further, and that dream will swell until even noon fears its glare. The living will go blind, and the dead will refuse to sleep." Raylan, whose lips were cracked from the fever of invention, answered, "Better blindness than shadow, better sleepless ache than nightmare." He shoved the lantern's mouth wider. The shepherd raised the crook and struck the ground. A tremor rippled outward. Where it travelled, the dew rose in twin spirals, braiding itself around dream beasts like new tendons, stitching lost fragments together. Those beasts turned, not against Rallan, but toward the lantern, their stolen kin pulsing inside the glass. As stags will sometimes stomp to free a fawn from hunters' nets, the dream beasts danced, each step weaving a lattice of condensed breath around the lantern. Raylan hammered against that mesh until his hands bloodied. When at last the lantern shattered, what burst free was not a single dream restored, but myriad shards reuniting into a storm of images too rich even for the triple moons to choreograph. The valley drowned in brilliance, and then the brilliance concentrated into the flame at the tip of the shepherd's crook. Rallan fell to his knees, blinded exactly as he had foreseen, but prayed would miss him. The shepherd pressed one palm to the oiler's brow. "You were right that light can aid," the shepherd grunted. "Myth takes on radiance so hunters don't lose their way. But balance it must remain. Carry this lesser lamp. fed only by your own breath, and wander the coasts relighting what storms have doused. That, not conquest, is the part of light that heals. And so the myth has it. From that night onward, every lighthouse under Rellin's care burned with a pearl glow calm enough for seabirds to navigate by, yet bright enough to argue with breakers, and no wave ever swallowed his towers. 2 parables might satisfy a temple homily, but myths tend toward triptychs like the moons they reflect. The final tale concerns Eri and Toma, twins born minutes apart, yet stationed by fortune on opposite shores of understanding. Eri dreamed fervently, remembered each vignette upon waking, and painted scenes so vivid they seemed wet. Toma, by contrast, never recalled a single dream, living days within a clean, bright silence that Eri both envied and pitied. They grew addicted to each other's difference, Eri yearning for peace, Toma for colour. On the decade when their 19th year coincided with the triple moon's return, Eri resolved to capture a dream beast live and tether it beside Toma's pillow, certain that shared proximity would gift her sibling with images at last. She crafted a collar woven from ribbons dipped in poppy milk and spider silk, a snare gentle yet binding. Toma, discovering the plan, felt wounded, not at the notion of being helped, but at being seen as lacking. To prove equivalence, Toma vowed to march ahead of Eri, enter Silverlane first, and present a dream beast caught bare-handed, proving no tool was needed. So both twins set forth, but not together. Eri approached from the west ravine, Toma from the eastern ridge. The moons hung full, gold, pearl, sapphire, mist pooled as if the valley were the shared breath of all the stars. Dream forms floated, some humble, like bells made of bee hum, others ominous, like shadows cast by fires never lit. Eri moved with artist's reverence, Toma with surgeon's focus. Neither noticed the third presence among them, a figure uncloaked, unhurried, staff in one hand, an air of listening about them, as though the whole night were a story told for their private hearing. Eri found a dream shaped like a lute whose strings were running rivers. Each pluck sounded not music, but laughter, remembered by someone who'd forgotten why they laughed. Eri slipped the collar over the dream's rounded neck. Its rivers shivered, but it did not flee. Meanwhile, Toma wrestled a different creature, a mirror wolf doubling every motion, its fur reflecting alternate lives. Toma pinned its forepaws, felt a rush of unspoken histories pour through skin into heart, every dream the twin had never held, crowding up all at once. It was too much, yet Toma clung, determined. The mist shepherd watched both halves of ambition tighten like opposite threads yanking a single cloth. Then the shepherd laid the crook between them, etching a circle in the dew. The valley air inside that circle clarified, stripping away moonglow, leaving only unadorned night. "Step here," the shepherd invited. Eri, hearing rumour upon rumour of the guardian, loosened the collar and obeyed. Toma, trembling beneath the mirror wolf, heard nothing but the flood of images pounding against ribs until sensation blurred. The wolf slipped free, doubling itself into 3, then 9 reflections, dispersing. Toma lay gasping. Within the circle, Eri felt all taste of artistry vanish. No urge to paint nor imagine remained. A hush more profound than fear filled her, and she realized that for the first time life stood unmediated by inner theatre. Across the dew rim, Toma crawled among scattered reflections, each one murmuring a separate dream. Overwhelmed, Toma sobbed, craving the old quiet. The shepherd addressed them together. Many wish to trade gifts because they see the other's bounty but not its burden. Dreams are nourishment, yes, but they ferment to madness if taken without pause. Dreamlessness spares that fever, yet it starves wonder. One of you carries famine, the other fever. Meet midway. With that, the crook tapped the ground twice. Mist roiled, then parted like curtains being drawn. A brook neither twin had noticed circled their feet, a literal middle water. They knelt, cupping opposing palms. In Eri's, colour pooled, but would not keep shape. In Thomas, clarity pooled, but would not move. They let the waters mingle. When they drank, each tasted both silence and song. Legend says they founded the still bright atelier on Silver Lane's northern rise, crafting works that flicker between dreamstroke and daylight precision. Travellers swear the paintings blink if you look too long, closing eyes painted of pigment to dream their own dreams behind canvas lids. Airy and Toma paint alternating hours, each resting in the dream song the other most recently brewed, keeping balance as natural as breath. You may ask, where was the shepherd once the twins reconciled? Some say the figure stepped into the silver grasses and dissolved, duty done. Others argue the shepherd remains always, because dreams forever wander and must be forever guided. The crook, they say, is not a tool but an oar, steering the boat of night across the waters of perhaps. I have never glimpsed the shepherd myself, but on the three-mooned night I have waked to find footprints wet with dew outside my threshold, curving gently away from my door, as though having paused to listen for the tremor of a nightmare breeding in my chest, and having heard none, passing on. One last whisper folds itself into the myth, small enough that only children usually notice. They ask, if dreams roam Silverland those nights, what of the dreams too timid to leave the cradle of a sleeper's mind? Who ferries them? The answer older tongues give is this. Timid dreams shapeshift into owls, and it is not the shepherd they follow, but the shepherd's shadow, which flits owl-winged just ahead, teaching them how to find currents of courage. Bengal barrow, but spill wings just ahead, teaching them how to find currents of courage. And when dawn comes, those owl dreams tuck themselves beneath pillows, gifting the waking head a single feather of courage. Slender, easily misplaced, yet enough to tilt one ordinary choice toward daring. So, spin the myth however you fancy. The citadel may continue to ink diagrams of moisture content and lunar pool, while farmers keep chalking glyphs above lintels. But if ever you stand in a valley painted the colour of coins spent long ago, and mist sweeps your ankles though there is no river, pause. Listen. Should you hear a staff striking soft earth, feel no terror. The mist shepherd is about good work, gathering the stories that have slipped their pages, guiding them through silver shadow back toward the open pasture of night. If your heart is steady, you might even spot the dream beasts, swirling one that carries the half-forgotten scent of your childhood garden, another donned in the posture of your unvoiced regrets, a third sparkling with the future's question marks. Let them pass. You need not pen them, bottle them, bridle them, or trade their wool for glory. They know their way, and someone is already leading them safely beyond dawn's blade. Instead, close your eyes. Thank the three moons for keeping equilibrium aloft. And should a soft, unbeckoned silence pool in your cupped hands, remember what became of Alios and Ralin. Pour that silence where it is needed, beside tomb, beneath storm, and then go home, by lamplight or by starlight, trusting that dreams, like rivers in a lute, will arrive again when night next spreads its pasture. The shepherd, crook in hand, will be waiting, just as the myth promises, where silver grasses move to a wind none of us can see, but all of us, in the eldest part of our breathing, know is real.